Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Scott is my name, the Decades of Action Challenge is my game. I am on number 48, number 48 in a 50 video series. Nearly at the end here. I have been inspired by a couple other YouTubers named Forkerball and Razor Wire Reviews on their series, the Epic Film Challenge. The Epic Film Challenge. They were and have been doing videos on the films as listed in a book called 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. My source material is different. It is called A History of Violence, an essay series by a writer named Tom Brehan for avclub.com. He is writing about each of what he considers the most important and influential action movie of each year for the last 50 years, starting in 1968 with the Steve McQueen Potboiler Bullet, with its famous car chase, and moving right up to whatever his pick for 2017 is. Could be Baby Driver, could be Atomic Blonde, could be something I've never heard of, we'll see. But this video I'm focusing on 2015, and of course it couldn't be anything other than Mad Max Fury Road. When I first saw this movie, I'd seen all the other Mad Max movies. I'd seen them on video, basically, back in the day, back in the 80s. The last one that came out, I think, was like 82 or 80, no, 82 was The Road Warrior. That was the second one, also known as Mad Max 2 in other parts of the world aside from America. And then there's Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, which came out a couple years later, not really sure of the year exactly. But George Miller directed all of them. And then he went on to do the Babe movies, and he did Happy Feet, and he did The Witches of Eastwick in '87. So it had to be like 85, maybe. Probably the same year as Rambo First Blood Part 2. I'm not really sure. Anyway, Mad Max and Mad Max 2 and Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome all starred Mel Gibson, who is actually an American citizen, despite the fact that he grew up in Australia, as Mad Max, a former cop in the wasteland of post-apocalyptic Australia. Fighting off guys who form gangs and terrorize people and hunt for gasoline to power their souped-up motor vehicles. And Mad Max Fury Road continues on in that tradition, however, without Mel Gibson in the title role. Actually, the main character of this movie is a woman by the name of Furiosa. She is an imperator, some high-ranking enforcer, in the gang led by Immortan Joe. Immortan Joe is played by Hugh Keays-Byrne. And it's been a really long time since I've seen the original Mad Max, but I understand he actually played a character in that one. And this one he's playing a different character, in much the same way that Bruce Spence played two completely different characters in the second and third Mad Max movies, so I'm told. Again, it's been a while since I've seen these movies, so I don't remember a lot of the characters' names. But I did see, of course, rewatch this movie very recently, and I had a ball. This movie is absolutely spectacular. Miller apparently spent a really long time developing. He started working on it in the late 90s, going through drafts, figuring out what would be the most awesome stunts and awesome vehicle designs he could possibly come up with. That's what it is. It's basically a lot of road battles, battles between rival gangs and what have you for gasoline and other resources. In this case, the resource happens to be young, fertile women. Immortan Joe keeps a stable of about 5 different young women that he can impregnate. Or have impregnated, and then, you know, he has more babies to grow up and serve him. He's got a whole group of young men who he calls war boys. They're basically bald and shirtless, and they're painted with white pancake makeup, and they do everything he asks because he promises them a personal escort to Valhalla if they die for him, if they die in his service. So that's where the conflict comes in. You've got Furiosa, Charlize Theron's character, who has snuck the 5 women that he uses as breeders into one of the trucks that she drives. They're going to make a run for ammunition to another outpost, or friendly outpost, but she veers off course, and when her cohorts realize what's happened, they fight her, and she fights them off, and they have to fight with the other people, other gangs that are trying to take their cars and take whatever that they've got for themselves. And Mad Max himself, Max Rockatansky, is played by Tom Hardy in this movie, of course, played Bane and The Dark Knight Rises, and a few other rather noteworthy films. He's taken over the role of Max, and he's basically captured by Immortan Joe's gang in the first part of the movie, and he ends up serving as a blood bag, as they call him, for one of the sickly members of the War Boys, Nux, who's played by Nicholas Hoult, who plays Beast in the new X-Men movies. Hank in the new X-Men movies. He's one of the War Boys, and he needs a blood transfusion, so they basically rig Max up to his car, and with a tether or a tube to pump his blood out of Max and into Nux, so that he can serve Immortan Joe and drive and track down Charlize Theron's character with the rest of the War Boys. So Max eventually gets free, and then joins up with Furiosa's team. Initially, he just basically wants to get free of his chains, but then they start working together very quickly. So the chase is on, really. Immortan Joe and his whole squad of very weird commandos, basically, are all piled up in their vehicles, and they've got their weapons, and and they're racing after Charlize Theron because they discover what she's taken from them. She's taken these 5 young women, and he's intent on getting them back. So it's a whole big chase. It's a chase here, it's a chase there, across the desert wasteland of Australia, which is actually shot in Africa because Australia apparently had too much rain while they were shooting it. It can't have rain in a post-apocalyptic movie. It just doesn't work. Water's supposed to be scarce. So yeah, huge, enormous creative designs for vehicles, incredible stunts and vehicle work. Yeah, and it's all, the plot takes a couple of different turns, but for the most part it's pretty simple. It's straightforward. Get away from Joe, get to safety, get to a place where we can hole up and be safe and live, relatively comfortably in this hellhole of a world. I have just a couple issues with this movie. Sometimes the action looks like it's been sped up in post-production. I find I'm not crazy about that. I wish they'd left it alone and kept it at regular speed. Everyone's, sort of, it's like vehicle movements and people turning their heads, a little bit too quickly. It just doesn't look quite right. And during the climactic set piece, another big chase, there's some green screen work in there, some compositing that's just a little bit too obvious, whereas the rest of it looks like it's shot pretty much live. Obviously, they don't have the actual actors playing the lead roles driving these vehicles and performing these stunts, but for the most part they double them pretty well. And there's a couple instances at the end where you've got people running on top of vehicles fighting each other, kind of like in the second Matrix movie, and the fact that it's the background's been added in post is a little bit too obvious. So Brehan loves this movie to death. Brehan also loves Die Hard to death, and I think it's sort of a fight between those two movies as to which he considers the greatest action movie of all time. When he wrote about Die Hard, it's like, this could be the greatest action movie of all time. And then last week he posted his article on Mad Max Fury Road, and he's like, no, this could be the greatest action movie of all time. So I don't know if he's going to do a summary essay, but yeah, he's really intent on one of those two movies, I think, being the best, while at the same time considering John Woo, who didn't direct either of them, to be the best action movie director, and he thinks that Hard Boiled is essential viewing for all action fans, and I'd say, that's a good pick right there. I wonder if there was anyone else I needed to mention here. The young women that Charlize Theron is trying to get to safety are played by Rosie Huntington-Whiteley from Transformers 3, Riley Keough from The Girlfriend Experience, the TV series, Zoe Kravitz, who was in X-Men First Class, Abbey Lee from Neon Demon, and Courtney Eaton from Gods of Egypt. They've done stuff beforehand and after them. They're known primarily, I think, for this particular movie, except maybe Zoe Kravitz, who's probably done a lot more high-profile stuff than the rest of them. And of course, Riley Keough is Elvis's granddaughter, so that's something she's known for. Namibia is the country where they shot this in Africa. I just have my little notes right here. Yeah, an exhilarating experience watching this movie. It's just amazing the work that went into it, yeah, it's definitely one for any action movie to take a look at and appreciate. yeah, definitely. I don't know if it's my favorite movie. I mean, in terms of like this grouping, I tend to like group them by decades or what have you. But you know, the set pieces themselves are pretty hard to top. So yeah, Mad Max Fury Road, terrific. That's the video for this week. Next week I'm doing a video on Killzone 2, another movie that I've never seen before. The original Killzone was a 2005 film, and I did a video on that already. But Brehan's actually posting his essay on that movie the same day. So I'll have to watch the movie in advance and then read his essay and then shoot my video and post it all on the same day. And at that time, if he holds to his pattern, in his essay he will mention what movie he's going to be writing about for the following year, 2017. At which point I will make a video on it after I rewatch it and post it a week before the essay even comes out. Because he posts every 2 weeks and I do a video every week. Of course I'm also going to be doing a Star Wars video. You know, I'll be seeing Star Wars next weekend. And I'll post a video probably within a week of seeing that on what I thought of that movie as well. But if you want to see more videos in my series, Decades of Action Challenge, the link to that playlist is below, along with the link to Brehan's essay on Mad Max Fury Road. My Facebook page is also linked below. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you again real soon. Appreciate your interest. Later.